I was getting nervous. Like, what is going on? Is this a sign that this
I
interview must not
know sometimes
happen?
it's hard.
Yeah. Thank you so much for making
You
time.
know, you know, or maybe a distraction.
But yeah, so really, I really wanted us to talk a lot about psychology, clinical psychology to be specific, because a lot of people
Yeah.
that I've came across with want to be a psychologist, including myself. And I think I even came to you to consult at some point when I wanted to do my master's to say, hey, look, I want to do my master's in psychology. What would you advise? But then you said, unfortunately, because you don't have any health like modules, so everything that you've done is like basically from the engineering side, then it won't be possible to just go straight into masters. So thank you so much for making time and welcome. So for everyone that has joined live, thank you so much for joining today. The interview is going to be focusing on psychology, clinical psychology, but we're going to really delve into who Ropiwa is as a like an individual, her career journey, because you're one of the people that I think you pivoted from where you started and then now you went and did psychology. So that also was very quite inspiring, like making such a brave move. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, so without really wasting much time, can we start from just who Rapiwa is? I know you are you've got two other sisters, triplets. You
Hmm.
guys are triplets, like, but who is Rapiwa?
Yes, yeah, we actually triplets. So I'm one of those people, like, when I want to break the ice, I'll just say, I'm a triplet. They're like, oh, really? What does it feel like? And I don't really know what it feels like because it's what I know. I don't know
Oh,
what it feels like to be alone or to have a sister.
yeah.
But, Rukua, I'm like a very easygoing psychologist, I will say. I think sometimes when we think about somebody who's in psychology, it's someone who's always serious, wants to talk about serious things all the time. But yeah, I am obviously a black clinical psychologist. I'm a mother, a wife as well, and very like village kind of, kind of life. Like I love like a simple, easy life that really takes in the process of what's going on. I always give people this scenario that when we think about milk that we get from a shop, I like when we know where it comes from, that we milk the cow, boil the milk,
Yeah.
wait for it to cool down and drink. So I like taking very, very things slowly.
Ah, that's nice. And when you talk about village life, I mean, I also grew up in the villages, and I always say, till today, my parents are still like going to the grinding mill, like we they
Yeah.
get like our milling mill grinded, so it's like very organic. So I love. I believe I also love that type of lifestyle as well. But yeah, so how was your upbringing? I would like to understand your upbringing more, especially looking at like we went to the same high school, I think just for your first
Yeah.
the beginning of your high school. And I think you
Yeah.
were far from the high school and you used to travel every morning to the high school, like looking at the kilometers that you used to travel. So how was your upbringing?
So, I think in the village we tend to think that maybe things back then were hard. But I think when I look at the times now, I think it's a lot harder now. But you're
Mm.
right, I was raised by a mom who's very education orientated. So we were in the village, but she made sure that when she hears that there's a good school somewhere, she's going to take us there. So somebody, I don't know, told her at work that there's this technical school. It was in Vondwe. Hey, it's in Vondwe. It has like a 90 something pass rate. So she just wanted us to go to a school that really is out there and has a good passing rate. And it didn't matter the distance was long. I think it was more than 50 kilometers to go and another 50 kilometers to come back. And also the village where I come from a village called Chikunda. It's a very small kind of, I want to say poor, but now it has developed a little bit. But it
Yeah.
was up the hill, very muddy. And we used to stay right at the top. So to go get a bus, we literally had to go down. And I think that would be another, 15 minutes to go down. And when it's raining, you are wearing your shoe. Like, it's just a lot. But, the one thing that my mom was, I want to take you to a school where I'm assured that you're going to pass and you're going to be somebody. So there was a lot of academic pressure at home because my eldest brother was very successful, and that was back then in the 90s. Was it the 90s or the 2000s? But he was like a very successful person and very smart. So not passing and not going to school was not an option. It's something that my mom really, really pushed. So it was a technical school. So I think I was struggling a little bit with drawing, and I don't think I'm an engineering kind of person, to be honest. And I told my mom when I was in grade 9 that, look, I'm struggling with the drawing. My drawings always come out bizarre. And I feel like I want to do something that has life sciences, um, something that will allow me to be able to help people. So I did have like a very easy the way they cook, but my mom really sacrificed and compromised me.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's my network cutting, but yes, like you breaking. I don't know if it's my network cutting, but yeah. And so now
Oh, I'm not
so
sure. Was I breaking a bit? Where did I break?
you were well, like where you were explaining about you were still explaining like finishing high school, you're not, I mean, struggling with drawings and then moving into wanting to move into life sciences. Yeah, you were explaining that part, and then
Yeah, so I
you
asked my
passed.
mom that Yeah. So I asked my mom to move into a school that has maths and science, and by that time it was Mbiri. And it was very difficult to get into Mbiri when you're going to grade 10 because, the classes were full. So I think me and my mom and my sister, we were there for like a whole week until they realized that we were very serious into getting into the school. And the first day they agreed, we were even not wearing a uniform because we didn't know if they were going to accept us or not. And they did. And I think that was one of the biggest thing in my career, where I was now being channeled into the right direction of something that I want to do.
Mm.
But that doesn't come with not struggling, unfortunately. So, in Biri, like when you go to Biri, the standard is slightly high and there's a lot of pressure. So I struggled a lot with maths now in grade 10, like really, really bad. And, my mom tried everything to go to Saturday school, find a teacher. But, unfortunately, that year I ended up failing it. Um, so I
Wait.
failed grade 10. Yeah, yeah. So I did. Yeah, I repeated my grade 10. And then when I was repeating at Mbiri, you can only repeat once. So I feel like that failure was a good one for me because that's when I actually realized that I want to go into university, and the pace that I'm going in now, I won't be able to go to university. And that kind of motivated me to want to ask questions and to listen in class because I felt like, it almost felt like that year I was sleeping. I'm like, where was I when they were teaching this? Why didn't I get it? And for me, that was just an awakening moment where I kind of woke up into the academic life and figured out what I wanted to do. Um, and I was in the right direction because then I thought, okay, I want to do medicine because back then we used to think a helping profession is being a doctor, right?
Correct.
We
Yeah.
don't know that there's other things, there's other ways that you can do OT, you can do physio, there's a whole lot more. Yeah, so then I passed my 10.2 and then I went to grade 11 and then I went to grade 12. In grade 12, I actually became the most improved learner at Mbiri. And I remember going into the stage like, wow, going into stage Chambiri, Mbiri. Now I wanted to use Venda because you're Venda, so it's like, anyway. Yeah, I remember going into that stage as the most improved learner because they looked at how much I was performing until then I was in grade 12. So I performed really, really well in grade 12 compared to my earlier years. And I think it was from that place of actually realizing that I want to go into university, and
Yeah.
I want to be, yeah, I want to study. And that really helped a lot.
But how, like, I mean, the shift, how, I mean, looking in Beauty has got top performing learners, and you now becoming one of the top performing learners. Like, what happened? Like, what really happened?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think that failure and actually realizing that I can't afford to fail, and then that made me hunger in wanting to go to university. So I did everything in my power to be able to make sure that I pass. Although I was not like at the top of Mbiri, but comparing my performance from when I was in grade 10 and then now in grade 12, there was a significant difference.
Yeah.
And that really helped. It really helped me to get into university.
Yeah. But then again, you know what I love about you, although you are a triplet, you also not living under anyone's shadow. Because I'm looking at like one of your sisters went to, technical high school, living Gumani Technical High School where both you guys were. She went to Thoyando Technical High School, and you didn't follow there. You went to Mbiri. So now really, I think looking at your career, which we're gonna touch on it just a little bit later, that also tells a lot about the type of a person you are. Like the confidence. I think the confidence is something that I noticed from when we were still in high school. That wow, this girl has got like so much confidence. Where do you get that from? I mean, just looking at it from as a young girl, it seems like you knew exactly what you wanted. Like, where do you get that from?
Yeah. Look, I wanted, when you were asking me this, I wanted to say that I get it from my mother, but I think it's also coming from a place where you feel like you don't fit in. So, obviously I grew up dark, and I think back then, also you're still young, you don't really know how to bath properly and stuff. So a lot of people used to pick on me. And I think also because we were triplets, it was easy for us to be compared. One of my sister you're talking about, it's a little bit fair, and then the other one who I'm identical with were the same
You're
color. So you will find,
identical.
yeah, so you find adults actually, commenting on that. So I don't know, somehow that became like, I don't know, like unconsciously, I don't know what happened, but it made me sort of like have a certain contribution that I want to bring, because I understood at a young age that it feels like I'm not bringing in beauty. So then I need to have something. So I don't know if I thought about it or it kind of happened like that, but you're right. Sometimes I look back at the things that I used to do and I'm like, what was I thinking? You remember I even joined a beauty contest
Yes,
at
Gumani.
Gumani, and I
Yes.
came number last, and that still didn't really
But
break me. Like
it
I was
didn't
just
break
like these
you.
people.
But now, what would you
So
advise for young adults or just young, maybe learners that are struggling with confidence? Because the one thing that allows you to be the best version of yourself is confidence, and also to perform. To be competent is also confidence. Like, what would you advise?
yeah, I think confidence is about accepting who you are,
Yeah.
like exactly how you look, like owning it, like look at my hair, my skin, like I embrace who I am. Sorry, are you getting load shedding there?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, so just really accepting who you are and being authentic. Look, I think sometimes we try so much to be other people, and we can't be other people, because if we try to be other people, we take away what we have and what God has given us. So just be yourself, if I think my personality is a little bit more outgoing and out there, and not even one bit I wanted to change that, because that's who I
Yeah.
am and that's what I bring. So I
Oh,
embrace that and maximize that, instead of maybe trying to be someone else who appears a certain way. So just accepting who you are, regardless of where it is in terms of the society norms.
mm,
Um, yeah, accept yourself, and it's okay. We won't look the same, we won't bring the same thing in the table.
oh.
So bring what you have, actually. Yeah.
I love that because I'm in engineering, and like people that are in engineering, they are expected to behave a specific way, and I'm like very bubbly, very out there, and when people look at me, they're like, oh, you're not gonna make it out, like with your bubbliness, and I tried to change that, and that only destroyed my confidence. It also, just showing up as you forget who you were yesterday, and now today you're trying to put another face. Like you've got so many faces that you put as a front, but really forgetting who you are. And when I started show up as who I am, I started really, excelling, because I only have me, I only have myself. I don't get to forget who I was yesterday. I mean, I just show up as myself. So I really love that. And now looking at your career, then you passed Birui Matric, you went to varsity, you went to CUCity. So take us through what you studied, and then what you practiced in after then. Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, I think I was a little bit overly excited about my achievements when I was in grade
I
12, that
think
I
you're
thought I
breaking.
was applied for cities. I applied for VETS and UCT, and I was okay. Am I
Yeah.
breaking?
You're
Oh,
okay
what am I
now.
breaking? Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay.
properly.
Thank you. So I was saying, okay, cool. I was saying, so because now my achievements were like really improving, I thought, look, I'm gonna go into VETS or UCT. So these are the only two institutions that I'm gonna apply to. I don't know, like I was like, no, later when you get your results, you're like, that was not a good idea, huh? But anyway, so I end up applying for UCT and VETS. And I wanted to do medicine. And medicine is very competitive. You need to be having distinctions most of the time. So at UCT, when I applied, back then we were doing paper based. Like you used to just write, like it was a paper application, and then you
Yeah.
would write a certain code of what you want to study. What I think happened is that I made a mistake on the code of medicine and audiology, because the difference was one number. And little did I know that that was going to save me, because my marks, even though they were good, they were still not good enough to get into medicine at that time.
Mm.
So at UCT, they had already accepted me, I think like what, mid-June, saying that you're coming to study audiology. I'm like, "Ugh, I don't even know what audiology is. I'm not going to study audiology. I'm waiting for VETS." And then VETS accepted me for my second option, which I think was law. But I just put it, I'm thinking I'm going to go do my medicine, but I didn't. And then now I was left with one option: to go to UCT and do this audiology that I don't know what it is, or to maybe take a gap year, go to Univen and do some late applications. Luckily, I had applied for the Department of Limpopo, and then I had gotten a bursary. And then my mom said, when you've gotten a bursary, there's no way that you can decline it, because it means you already have a job. You would just go study there 4 years and then come back. So I did exactly that. I
And this is
took
this the Department of Health. Oh, wait.
Limpopo, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Department of Limpopo DOH. So then I got a bursary. I went into UCT, enrolled for audiology, learned what audiology was on the first day. And then I'm like, it's not too bad. I think I still
Not a
get
bit
to
like
talk to.
before, like on the first day when you got to varsity.
I mean, I think I did my research, but it was not making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was like, this is not too bad. I think I will do it, and see what happens. So I think not a problem, but something that I had to really consider very well was that because I have a bursary, I have to be very careful in terms of changing careers. Because my option was I will do audiology first year, do really, really well. Then I will apply for medicine the following year, then I'll be in first year. But I thought I would lose my sponsor, so I wasn't sure about that entirely. And because of that, I ended up not pursuing that option fully because of that. Then I said, you know what, look, I will do this audiology, and then from maybe I will, I don't know, find some inspiration as I go along, but at least I still get to help people, which I think was the main goal of doing medicine. And then from there, um, so in audiology we do psychology courses, and then we had psychology 101, and then my first lecture in psychology, I was like, this is what I wanted to do. When they were explaining and selling psychology, I'm like, this is what I meant when I said I wanted to help people. And because of that, I promised myself that I will finish audiology, I will go work for the bursary, change the socioeconomic status at home as well, and then I will take myself to school. And that's exactly what I did. I finished in record time, came and did my community service, ended up getting married, have had kids, and then 7 years later, I went back to school. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, practicing audiology, which obviously was not really your first choice, how was it like? You going to do your community service as well, was it also a prerequisite for, yeah, for, I don't know, for being qualified? Yeah, how? Mhm.
Yes. So audiology is a 4-year degree. And for those who don't know what it is, so audiology, you basically work with people that have a problem with their ears or with their balance or hearing problems. So you are still working in a hospital setting and still helping people in that regard. So for that, everybody who is in a kind of helping or health profession kind of like career, you do have to do 1 year community service for you to qualify as an independent practitioner. Um, and look, if you were outside and you didn't really know my story, you wouldn't even think that this audiology chose me. I didn't choose it. I remember one of my good friends, when I told her that I was going to school, she's like, I thought you love audiology. I'm like, yeah, but because I think it doesn't really matter what you're doing. It's about also the dedication and also doing people justice with what you're doing. Yeah, for me.
And when you were practicing, so you did 1 year community service, and then you were practicing. Were you practicing by like on your own, or like how were you practicing?
Yeah, so in audiology, I did a little bit of both. I did work in a government hospital, and then I was working like on Saturdays, I would see people at my own private practice. But I knew that I wasn't going to do it for a long time because at the same time, I was now doing my honors in psychology for me to be able to qualify to do my master's. So I did try private practice. Didn't go as well as I had planned that it would.
Mhm.
But yeah, I gave it a try. Yeah.
When you say it didn't go well, what were the obstacles?
I think, look, exhaustion. I think sometimes you get so exhausted because you're doing a 9 to 5 during the day, and then on the weekends, you are now at your private practice. So there was not enough time to rest. I had young kids. And I think in private practice, I did not thrive. I think because of my personality, that's something that I would want to address also going forward with psychology, because I am planning maybe at some point of a private practice. But sometimes you will find that the medical aid doesn't pay and you've rendered services. It becomes hard to say, look, you are owing this much, please come and pay. Yeah, it became a charity case kind of on my case, and
Oh
I
my
think
God.
that can be a little bit discouraging.
And you
Yeah.
can't do that. I think me and you are the same. Like, it's so hard to say, you
Yeah.
know what, this is the service that I've rendered and you have to pay. So that's why maybe you need like people around you that will be handling your books.
Definitely.
But as you
Definitely don't
said,
touch the books. Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna mention it and psychology. And then you
Yeah.
went and studied psychology. So you quit your job and you
Yeah.
went to study psychology full time. Like, I'm looking at you, you are a wife, you've got kids, you are quitting your full time job. Where did that come from? Like, where did you get the courage? I mean, looking at myself now, wouldn't even consider it. That braveness, yeah.
Yeah. So remember, this was always the dream, right? That I will work and I will take myself to school. So even kind of like sometimes even the decisions I was making were a little bit safe because I wanted to still go back to school. And I felt like I still have the energy to study. So luckily with our audiology degree, we do psychology modules until third year, which means if I want to pursue psychology further, I start from an honors level. So I decided, look, I will apply and do my honors with UNISA while I still have a job and while I'm still raising the kids. I mean, they were still pretty small. Um, so I did my honors, but because I wanted to get into masters, I divided it to be 2 years because it's 8 modules that you can choose to do the whole year, but they also recommend that you do it within 2 years because it can be a lot of workload.
Yeah.
So I chose to do it within 2 years nicely, and then I made sure that I meet the requirements for me to go into masters. So I did my honors with UNISA 2018 and 2019, and then I finished, and then it was COVID, and then I was like, now that was, I think, a perfect time for me to apply because we were not working as much. I could be able to prepare nicely for interviews as well. So from there, after my honors, everything literally just came together, and even now I still say, I think that was God because everything somehow in that year just kind of like fell into place.
Yeah.
And I was so lucky just to get in because it's very difficult to get into clinical. Yeah, yeah, even to this day, sometimes I still wonder, and I think that was God's grace and being in the right time. I don't know.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
before we dive more into psychology, would you advise anyone to study audiology?
Yes, I would. Yeah, if you love it, you can, and especially if you want to make a difference in a space where, because with audiology, you do work with a lot of people that maybe are hard of hearing, struggling with their hearing. Some lose it suddenly, some give birth to children maybe that don't hear so well. So it is still an option if you still want to be in a helping profession and don't want to do things like medicine or dentistry. But I would recommend it. Yeah, if you love it, you can do absolutely
Hmm.
anything.
I
Yeah.
see someone online happy saying that congratulations, sis. It's very hard to get into masters. Like, why is it
Thank you.
hard? It seems like now, you're applying for medicine from high school. Why is it hard?
Look, you mean to get into medicine or to get into clinical? I think she means clinical.
Into clinical.
Masters is clinical.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is, why is it hard?
Yeah.
The way, like you also mentioned it, that is hard. It's like getting into medicine from high school. So I'm like comparing it that the way you guys are
Oh,
putting it.
yes.
Yes, why is it hard? And
Mm.
you also spoke about the interview. So I would also like to understand the process to get into doing masters. Yeah.
Yes, no, it is hard. Look, I think a lot of people from first year, maybe they want to be a psychologist, right? And then you will find that a psychology class has about what, like 500 or 400 people to become psychologists, but that's like the very beginning. So that's the start. And then from there, you have to now compete into an honors. And honors is a small class because they need to be training you now to want to prepare you to become a clinical psychologist. So then the class is much smaller. So think of people that are 500 in first year and they're now competing for a master's maybe position, let's say, which is about 80, sometimes 100. 100 people, so the competition is tough. I think because the profession itself, it's small and requires a lot of supervision. So for you to become a clinical psychologist in South Africa, you do have to be registered with the HPCSA, and for you to be registered with the HPCSA to practice as a clinical psychologist, there are certain requirements that you have to meet. And because a lot of people, the requirements that you need to meet requires like a certain amount of supervision hours. So you need to do an internship that is supervised, and the master's that's also supervised in training you to become a psychologist. So that requires those supervision hours, and there isn't a lot of people to supervise you. So you'll find at every university they take about 12 people, because that's the capacity that they have where they can supervise people. And I think that's where it becomes a little bit hard, because you can't have 100 people to train to be psychologists, because you need to be supervised, they need to check your work. Like, it's a whole sort of like list of kind of like criteria that you need to meet. And if you think about psychology, you're working with people that are struggling with mental related issues, can be a very vulnerable population. So they have to make sure that they select people that really have the best interest of the people that they're serving. So that's why it's a little bit tight, because it goes through a tight measure. Is it measure the right word? But like, it goes through a tight process, and it's like a 5 days long interview, where you do interviews, you do groups. They have to see how you are in a group. They have to see like role playing in terms of how do you think or speak to clients, because there's a certain criteria that you kind of need to meet to be a clinical psychologist. And that's a combination of your past experiences, combination of who you are as a person, combination of your career goals, how you see the world, how you see people around you. Because the job itself uses you as a tool, so we need to make sure that you are the right person to
So
be used.
when you say 12 people, are you saying that into the Masters for Clinical Psychology, they only take 12? That's the maximum.
Yes, mostly that's the maximum. Some universities take 6, some take 8.
What? It's so monitored.
Is it?
No, I'm saying it's very limited and very monitored.
Yeah, because of the supervision issues. Yeah, it
And
is. Um,
I know a lot of people who have studied psychology as an undergraduate degree, they're struggling to find employment. Would you then advise anyone to study psychology as an undergraduate qualification? Would you advise?
Look, I wouldn't necessarily discourage a person who wants to study psychology that they shouldn't study psychology, but I would advise them to maybe know more about what it entails to become a registered clinical psychologist in South Africa. That it takes about like what, maybe 7 to 8 years, because it's 4 years undergrad or even 5, and then another 3 years in terms of doing your masters, and then your internship or ComServe, and to some institution it can even be 4, because there's other institutions like SMU where your master's program is 2 years. So you sort of like have to have a clear picture in mind, like what I did when I was studying audiology, and I had a plan that I'm gonna do this, and I kind of planned for it. So it has to be an informed decision. And you have to start working on it from the word go, like from first year. You need to start to be doing self-help tools or things that are going to make you a candidate who stands out, or a candidate who's suitable from that level. Not that you just study kind of like blindly, and then you are at honors, and then now you can't get in and you don't know what to do. So maybe to make an informed decision, yeah.
Would you then recommend that for somebody who would like to study psychology from an undergraduate degree should get a mentor that is already practicing? Would that work at their advantage?
Yeah, you can get a mentor. If you can't get a mentor, you can do a lot of like sort of like empowering volunteering work at your free time, where you go into institutions like orphanages or any other institutions where you get to interact with people, learn a little bit about people's world. Because as a psychologist, obviously, you need to be a person who's kind of like broad in terms of your thinking, very analytic as well, problem solving. So you can develop those skills. Even self help books these days can really guide you into a sense of the kind of a person that you are, if you are suitable for the career. Also addressing your own personal issues, very self-aware person, I must say, you need to be. But there's a lot of resources online these days that you can kind of help yourself in that regard, yeah.
Okay. And to get into honors, is it easy or is it hard, like getting into masters?
I think that depends on an institution, but it's relatively easy. It was easy for me to get into honors at UNISA. It's still competitive at other universities, but relatively easy. It's not, I mean, there's a lot of competition, but you can be more lucky than you could when you're applying for your master's.
Okay. So then walk me through the process of you now having obtained your master's. What happens after?
So look, I think the reason why they do those interviews because they need to get a candidate who can kind of like stand through the fire, right? Because the program is really, really tough. So I enrolled into my master's in 2021. Remember, I told you that I have kids, right? So I didn't have an option of repeating a year or anything. So I think I had that pressure that I have to do this in record time. My calendar starts in January because some people have to go to school. So I have to make sure within a year, if I start in Jan, I need to finish in December. I can't kind of like drag some things. So luckily the program that I studied at Vets, it was 1 year for, so that's the master's, a coursework where you attend classes, you still now are learning how to do therapy, you are seeing clients as well, you are in supervision. And then I finished that after a year, and then I had to enroll into a supervised internship in an institution that provide that. So usually it's big institutions like Chris Hani, Baragwanath, Charlotte Mateke, these hospitals. So I did my internship there. It was very tough. Internship is very, very tough. You are working because you have certain requirements that you need to meet for HPCSA. You are also doing research on the side because it's a master's degree. So you have to be very robust and really learn how to plan your things very well so that you can do that. So I did manage, fortunately, to submit my research on that year and also to finish my internship. And the internship, it can be pass or fail. Remember, people are evaluating how do you see your patients, how, those kind of things. But there's a lot of support. There's a lot of support for interns. And that's why you have to be few, because remember, you will have like one supervisor, the other person has a supervisor, and they have to check your work and stuff. So that's that. Then after finishing your internship, then you can apply to do community service, and you can only apply to do your community service when you have when you have completed your research. So then now you have your degree, right? And then you do community service. It's a requirement for everybody, like in a helping profession, medicine, OT, physios. And then after serving your community service, then you get your certificate as an independent practitioner, that now you can open your own private practice, or you can work independently on your own without mandatory supervision. But supervision is still it's still required for our work, because I think our work does require a lot of supervision.
So when you talk about your internship, me looking at psychology on its own, looking at it from an angle of, you are counseling people. Are you with someone that is supervising you, or like under, someone's shadow, basically? How does the internship work?
So, internship, you are a qualified psychologist, but you do have to go for supervision, because remember, you are still new in the profession. You learned the theory and how to do things and how to see clients. So now you kind of have to do the practical work of actually seeing clients, giving a sense you are under somebody, you are under supervision, to get a sense of what kind of a psychologist you are. what's your thinking like, how do you resolve clients' problems, how do you understand psychology as a whole. So you are seeing patients, but you are somebody is responsible for you, or you're reporting to somebody and sharing your case, and discussing and sharing your thoughts as well. Yeah.
Okay. So for somebody who would like to then study psychology or clinical psychology rather, because there's clinical, there's industrial, what would you advise them? Like somebody maybe looking at it from university, not sorry, high school, and then also somebody that is already maybe working somewhere and they would like to pivot into psychology.
Sorry, I think you were breaking a little bit. Were you asking what are the requirements for someone who's in high school and someone
No,
who's done?
what would you advise? Looking at the process itself to get into practicing, like having your own practice. What would you advise for somebody who is coming from who is in high school and would like to become a psychologist, a clinical psychologist?
I think being a psychologist is a combination of factors. Like I said, it's a lot about who you are, how you see the world, how you interpret the world, your perspective about the world, how you resolve problems, whether in your world or in other people's world. Are you objective, non-judgmental and very, very ethical, integrity kind of. So I think the first thing is to be authentic, and to be self-aware.
Mm.
Self-awareness, it's like at the top of the list, because remember, you can work with people that maybe differ with you in who they are, in their beliefs. Can you still be respectful when things are different? So you really have to sharpen those skills of being aware, and also work on your own, like, inner self. We talk about healing these days, I think, even on TikTok, about your past experiences, whether it be trauma or not trauma, but to just really process your life and be self-aware in that sense, and to get into psychology now from maybe matric or still high school. I'm not sure if you need life sciences. I'm really, really not sure. People will just have to check, you forgive me, on their website. What you can check at universities, like what are the courses that you need to choose. But you just also have to be a compassionate and kind person. Like, I think, how you treat people, being respectful, honoring your boundaries, and self-help stuff, and very curious, kind of like those kind of, you need to borrow a little bit of those personalities, or not personalities, but of those qualities, yeah, and values as well.
I think that's also applicable to somebody that's also maybe have another degree and would like to pivot into psychology. So thank you so much, Rafua, for making time. I don't want to take much of your time. Is there anything that you think I could have asked you that would add value into, like knowing what psychology is? Actually, I didn't even ask what is psychology. Maybe before you tell me, like, if there's anything that you should have, maybe I should have asked. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people think about psychology as something which is just a theory, and especially if you haven't been to a psychologist yourself, won't really know what psychologists do. But psychology is just basically the study of human behavior, right? And it's a science, so it's somebody who's trained or who knows how to understand how people behave the way that they behave, and mostly have skills in order to help people resolve issues or difficulties that they may have, or help people in terms of mental health issues, wellness issues, decision making. So it can be very, very broad depending on what you work with. But I think the big thing about psychology is that it's human behavior and it's a science. So it's like a science of human behavior, or how we behave the way that we behave. Yeah.
So anything that you think could add value that I should have asked?
I'm not sure. I
Are you
don't know.
open for mentorship?
Look, I would love to mentor people, but I think right now, because I just recently finished, I'm still just catching my breath a little bit. And from there, I will open up and I will let you know when I am ready to take on some people. But I would love to do that in the future, and not so long, but I just need to take a break a little bit.
No, that's understandable. I think it's always great to absorb what you've learned and then, so that you can be able to share from a full cup. So you can't
Yeah.
pour, out of an empty cup. So,
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
no, thank you so much for joining. And what's next for you? I mean, you have just completed your qualification. Now you're doing your community serve, or
No, I'm done with community service. I'm an independent practitioner now.
Mm.
So I can see patients by myself. I am working at one of the small hospitals in Limpopo. I just started. Yeah, I just started. I think it's been a month now. So I'm gonna be working there for some time, but I do have plans in getting my own private practice running. I think I have a lot of things, especially I've got interests with child psychology, parenting, those kind of things. So I'm thinking of things. When I'm ready, I think I will share those details with you guys.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're gonna get someone to manage your finances, eh? When you're running your own practice.
That's a definite that's definitely something that I am going to do, because private practice is a business and sometimes we don't think about it that way. So I'll get all the help that I need.
No, all the best with your future endeavors. I know the future is bright.
Thank
Just
you.
looking at where you started and where you are now, and you're still pushing. Having a family did not stop you from still pursuing your dreams. So, which is quite inspiring. So, thank you so much for joining. I'm
Thank you
hoping
so
to
much.
have like to continue chatting with you because I
Yeah.
love psychology, so I still want to
Yeah.
pursue it.
Yeah,
Maybe you
yeah.
will be
I
my
think
mentor to become
yes,
a
yes.
psychologist.
Yeah, I'll gladly be your mentor. Yeah, I'll do that. I think we should keep in touch. Actually, we should go back to Gumani. Maybe let's plan something.
We
I
should.
need to share this. My memory with you. I
Mm.
remember at assembly, you were very affectionate, and I think that was very strange for me. I think at assembly you always like sort of like put your head. I mean, that was very cute. But what I remember most about you is that I think in the morning you used to bake. Like when you're coming from to school, you bake like I think scones or something, and then
Well, my
you
mom
like it
loves
will be there on your mom loved baking. So I think sometimes when you were touching flour or something, I'll be like, what's that on your skate? You're like, oh, it's flour. I was baking. I'm like, oh, you would say something like that. That was very cute.
No, we should really plan to go back. I'm planning to have a career fair in Limpopo in June. Currently, I'm doing
Yeah.
it in East London, so definitely it would be very lovely to have you as well.